Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. I'm alongside tonight from the Great Midwest, RDV. And speaking of the Great Midwest, we're going to go to the great middle end of the 1980s, as we often do here on Extreme Movie Show, and talk about a John Candy film with Dan Aykroyd called The Great Outdoors from 1988, summer release film, RDV. And I got to tell you, back in the day when this came out, I saw it. Haven't seen it in 40 plus years that it's been, whatever, 30 plus anyway. And I got to tell you, the thing about John Hughes films is he has these certain ideas, like John Hughesisms, if you want to call it that. And as a kid, I grew up watching like Benny Hill and Doctor Who and a few things that would come over the old 3-channel TV stations here in Florida. And one of them was something called SCTV, which was Canadian Saturday Night Live, for lack of a better term, which John Candy was on it, Dan Aykroyd, a lot of people that went to Saturday Night Live, they went to Chicago. So I've known about John Candy ever since I was a kid, and everybody loves John Candy, right? So
Yep.
here you have a movie about something that we see from Vacation with Chevy Chase back in the early 80s. We see a summer family kind of film about people that get together at a lake. Hilarity ensues. There's these family type of hijinks. And I got to say to myself, this is an okay film. I didn't think it was awesome. I thought it was okay. It was enjoyable. It's very light. Anybody of any age can watch it. So it's fun that way, and it's wholesome, which you and I have talked about is rare to find. So I got to tell you, after watching it, I got to say the film's aged well. There's definitely, if you're a John Hughes film, things to talk about to compare it to go, yeah, I see how people today don't almost talk about family trips or what kind of problems that come up or the summer romance or those kinds of things. I got to sit there and say, it's not a bad film. There's definitely better ones I'd recommend first out of the John Hughes catalog. But who doesn't love John Candy? He's the anchor in any film that he's in. It makes everything so much better. So overall, an okay film that's worth watching. What's your initial take?
Well, one of the reasons there's two reasons I like this movie, because this movie I used to watch with my dad a lot of time growing up. My dad was really into John Candy films like this, kind of zangy, kind of the dumb humor, and then and also the other reason is that it takes place in 1988, so I'm seeing some of the 80s stuff, and culture that's still around, the VHS, or when you go fishing up there, there was really nothing to do. I mean, so if you went somewhere and there's a lot of if you got a chance to meet a girl, you went for it, because that was it. Because because you couldn't, because you had a caller. You had a caller on the cordless phone, on the corded phone. And so there was no texting, none of that stuff. So,
yeah.
I mean, so
you had to go out and get out there, and you had to go after it, especially in a summer situation, because the locals are used to the city folk coming in and stealing their women and all that stuff.
And just anybody who's ever been on a lake and stuff like this, water skiing or just going fishing or going up to the cottage stuff. It was interesting that they chose us to have like a family from Chicago going to Lake Wisconsin. I guess that's a lot of the movies, I guess, John Hughes did. At least two of them. They had somebody either from Chicago, or they're talking about Chicago.
Yes.
Chicago
and North Chicago specifically. We're like 16 Candles, all Weird Science, all those films are all filmed in just a couple of different neighborhoods in North Chicago. Yeah, because that's where he grew up, so he tried to implement that in his films, and you're absolutely right. This is a pastime for him.
Well, also this movie is kind of, realistic in the fact we always have that one person in their family we just can't stand.
Yes.
Even if they don't mean to be a jerk, they come off that jerk because that's just the way they're raised. They're oblivious to it, or they actually are just a jerk. And so you get that sense of you want to compete. And John Candy, he's the average guy. He's the guy. He's like, he wants to compete with his brother-in-law or brother in this situation. And it's basically it's a upcoming of a guy wanting to step up and just prove that he is a good father, and he's still the cool dad. And it's funny about this is that no matter what he does, his kids don't care. His one son just wants to go out and go talk to the girl he met.
You know what though? 100% realistic, right?
Yeah, and the twins, the kids,
the redhead twins, the Red Rum sisters.
Yes. But I love seeing Dan Aykroyd and John Candy together. I don't really see them ever together in movies. We may have seen them cross over on some comedy stuff, but I can't think of another movie where they've crossed over.
Well, I'll say this, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I've always thought about when people have worked together before or they're really good at their job, like Candy and Aykroyd are, and you gotta understand they've been around for 10, 15 years minimum at this point, worked their way up. So they're, for lack of a better word, comfortable with where they're at filming. So I think that it seems very easy, the chemistry that they have. And I actually thought John Candy had great chemistry with the lady who played his wife, who's an average no name person. And that's one thing too. I'm not shitting on any of the actors or actresses in this film when I say this, but one thing I've always loved about John Hughes films is, for the most part, whether we're talking about the teenage kids or the young kids or the adults, bottom line is they look like normal people. I mean, they look like average Joes, and that's not good. That's not bad. That's just nice. It makes you feel like you're able to connect them with a little bit. They're not all, nines and tens and models and everything else there too. And I thought their little banter was very wifey, husbandy, without being bitchy or this or that, or none of the alpha stuff or the independent stuff. No, it's just, we're here to have fun. And there's a little talk there where he was getting pissed, and she's like, "You're a nice man, and I know that, and I love you, and I can see that." And she's like, "Whatever." I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of cute and wholesome." But you're right. The kids are like, "Yeah, we don't give a shit." Um, and the thing with the summer romance is that's realistic. It kind of didn't really go anywhere or do anything. It was just sort of there, and that's fine. There was nothing extreme about it. But I kept staring at the two redhead girls, going, "Okay, they're not speaking. Yeah, they get lost at the end in the old mine shaft, which of course they have to go save." But I'm looking at them going, I don't care about them either. So it's hard, because if you're not emotionally invested in them, or you see yourself in them, or there's a lot of characters, it makes, I think, a little harder to kind of feel bonded, even though you have a selection. It's a little different than like Vacation, where as a guy, you're Clark Griswold, right? Or if
Mhm.
you're a young man, you're a son, right? So here it's like, well, we're not going to be any of the kids and all that too. But John Hughes put that element in those films. He did it in Vacation. He did it in all the other ones as well. And like I say, it's pretty lighthearted. Wherever they filmed this, which I know it's Wisconsin, but it's really California. But it's gorgeous. It's beautiful
No,
where they're at. It didn't look like an upscale place too. Not like it was a shithole, but it looked nice. It looked. This movie's aged well,
yeah,
is what I'm trying to say.
and it still is. Yeah, it has that. It's a family friendly movie.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, it is.
like I said, I look at this movie as like John Candy is being the overweight Chevy Chase in the sense, like whoever Chevy Chase character, when he plays the character, he tries to do something with the Griswolds, and it doesn't work out always. And this is and this is it's the same humor you get in here. I said that the scenery, the comedy, and just a sense of wholesomeness, because there isn't many movies like this today.
Well, I think the longer the movie goes on, like I say, nothing major happens. There's nothing evil about it. You get some light humor with like the raccoons getting into the
The
trash,
raccoons
but
are the
they
best part, man.
yeah, but they have on there, the way they talk about the humans is kind of funny, because they have some of the best dialogue and lines in it. Um, and they're subtitled too, right? So you hear what
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
saying, and they're escalating. And then there's a real nice, the old classic campfire story where John Candy does a great job, and you're like, okay, this is kind of dumb, this is stupid, I've seen this in all the father son talks, which you actually don't see in movies these days. But he tells a story about how when he was a kid, his dad brought him up to the lake, and they had an encounter with a bear, and the bear lost some of its hair, and blah 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 blah. And of
Yeah.
course, the bear's still stalking him as an adult. And we know where it's going, but it's executed well.
Yeah,
Here's
I love how they build up the whole bear thing. You're like,
Yeah,
it doesn't exist, and you're like, oh crap, holy crap, I didn't expect that because nowadays, like they don't, you get a lot of red herrings,
yes.
or they don't even. It just, I don't know. It's just like the way John Hughes can direct and write stuff. It's like it's like he makes the stories believable. When he does everything, he put his passion to it. He was like one of the, as I said, I still look at him as one of the great filmmakers of that time.
There is a sincerity that he has in a lot of his films that comes across as, him personally, his touch to it, and I do like that. Man, he's involved in like directing and writing it
Yeah,
too. One of the issues I have with this film that I remember now after watching it, going, okay, this is why I haven't gone back and said, oh, let me rewatch this. And I'll be blunt, is there's periods of this movie where everything's working, but I'm like, I'm just not feeling the energy. I'm just not feeling it. It just seems almost a little like low key, like everything's at like 75% speed or energy or something. And I'm not sure how else to say it. And it's not disappointing, but I found myself going, well, I like the film. I don't hate really any particular aspect, but something just felt like it was missing. And I don't know how to explain it. And I have to say this too, because seeing it back in 1988, I'm
Yep.
telling you, people absolutely love this film. And for a lot of people,
Yeah.
this is their favorite John Candy, John Hughes type film. It's up there. To me, it's mid level, or as the kids these days say, mid.
Mid. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can understand somebody saying that it's lacking that, but if I just think of this as like a non-meatballs type movie where it's a very chill, laid back type thing, that's a little bit of a better vibe to take into it. Maybe I was just expecting some big event and things to come to a crescendo towards the end in the third act, and they really don't. So maybe that was just my expectation, not really remembering too much about it. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I would say, well, the mindset again for this, because I'm watching Uncle Buck and I'm watching this, so I'm in a John Candy mood, a John Hughes mood. Sure, there are many other movies out here that are better than this, but the reason I like it, as I said, I have nostalgia factor, and also the fact, it's just I have memories of watching this as a kid with my dad, so it's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons I liked it. It's so rental. I don't even remember that.
All I remember is John Candy looking at the guy. Excuse me, sir, your wife's on my whammy. Made
Yeah.
it frisbee, of course.
But when it comes to this movie, there's two scenes that always come out. It's the skiing, where you're skiing on one leg.
Right.
The dumb thing, and that's a Chevy Chase. It would have been a Griswold thing if you think about it. The slapstick humor. The other one is where he's all you can eat. He eats the ribs.
What was that night?
Or steak. That's what it's. Steak,
Oh,
not
the
the ribs.
96er. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. That was
And then
that
he's
6
looking at you
pounds?
like, and he's up chucks it later on. I don't feel so good.
How did you feel about the guy, the local yokel, who they made him seem like he was a little retarded, excuse me, mentally challenged, because he'd been struck by lightning like, 50 times or whatever it was. And, he kept going, "Third." It's like, John, I don't remember you doing that in a film before. And then the other thing, well, actually, it's related to this. So he's telling his son about the Bears story or whatever because now it's becoming real, and he tries to be cool, like a dad would be, when at night they're driving back to the cabin in the car, and the bear gets on top, and then the second
Yeah.
one comes, and he actually backs the car out with the bears on it. And I go, I know this isn't an action movie. I know this isn't CGI or whatever, but I'm going, holy crap, the one effect that I thought was pretty good was at the end when the bear was chasing him into the cabin and knocked down the
Yeah.
doors on top of him, smashing
Yeah.
it down to the ground. Like, that's a nice little effect, however they did that. I thought that was pretty cool, man. Because a lot of people think of bears as cute and cuddly, and
Yeah.
they're not. They are not.
No. And it's funny that you bring up, you're kind of like, you're talking about this movie. It's that you liked it, but you're like, it wasn't great. Because apparently this movie, when it came out, it had mixed reviews.
Yes, it did.
Uh,
People just the energy level was the thing.
So, and this kind of describes it too. It's like this guy from Hal Hinson from the Washington Post said, imagine that it's raining cats and dogs and you're locked in the North Woods cabin for weeks with people you like the least. And you pretty much have a feel for what it's like to sit through this movie.
But the hard part is, like,
but
when you
I
look
think
at Vacation,
Sort
it's hard to not like Eddie in his own weird, goofy way, but as a family, you have to kind of suffer through it. And that's where I
yeah,
think John Hughes does a good job because you're right. You could argue that Dan Aykroyd's supposed to be kind of a jerk, and his wife, certainly a young Annette Bening, she's miserable. It's like, I don't
yep,
like her. I don't want to see her. So I can see where people are like, well, why would I watch characters I don't care about?
yeah. I think this movie works with John Candy. With anybody else, I don't think it would have the same kind of humor because John Candy always bring that kind of magic to whatever role he did. And Planes, Trains, and Automobile. I mean, as much as I love Steve Martin, John Candy was the person that like made it funny, humor.
Right.
And so I said, this movie is, a lot of us can probably identify with. We probably know somebody who's kind of like Dan Aykroyd's character, or like John Candy. You can what else you relate? Remember being dragged as a kid, going, okay, we're gonna go up to the cabin. I don't want to go. I just want to just sit at home or go hang out with my friends, go do things, but you're being dragged along. So it's interesting to see the point of view from the kids, but also see this, like I said, I've always looked at it. Is it like a Chris? This is like Chris, or not Chris Vacation, but National Lampoon's, Vacation. The kid's rusty, he doesn't want to go, and then he meets the girl, and it's like, uh, so yeah, I mean, obviously, not everybody's gonna have the same reaction to this. Some people actually might like it. Some people might hate it. Some people are like, meh, But that's the joy about a movie. If you can make a movie and it still makes twice as much as its budget, and you can still get people, this to talk about it. Look at it. Whether you hate it or not, it's still talked about. We're talking about it right now.
Well, and the thing I do like is that I think John Hughes films, without getting too technical, because they're for other
Yeah.
streams, is that he does something interesting with some of his characters. And I've always talked about how 80s, and especially here in Extreme Movie Show, when we talk about 80s movies, we talk about how much we love Ninja, and you can't get enough of that. And we go kind of crazy for some of those silly films. But we've always said the 80s, for the most part, delivered you a sense of optimism, fun, a realism, wholesomeness, and other stuff. And there's a nice, deep, dark side to it. What I think about John Hughes is that he does have some scenes in there that you can relate to, but he doesn't throw it in your face to make you realize, yeah, this man's wife's a bitch. I don't, instead of you
Yep.
getting mad at her and hoping something happens to her or she learns her lesson at the end of the film, that's not the point of the story. But he does a very tasteful job of presenting people in such a way where they kind of get into it. And even though she sounds like an elitist, upper class snob when they're at the bar, and she's like, "Oh, being rich makes somebody feel so lonely." It's like they didn't really get into it that much, but they could have explored that a bit, because obviously it's a status thing where they're at, and the rich people do things, because of money as a resource, and ultimately what it comes down to. And you can even argue with Dan Aykroyd being a sleazebag, trying to
Yep.
hit him up for money, like, you fucker, what the hell are you doing? But John doesn't let it get to, like, DEFCON 1 where everything's going to go nuclear. He just presents that, hey, it's not always easy with family, but it's still family. These are things family goes to. And back then, I would say I didn't think there would be a loss of summer films that would come out that are about the summer and about family.
Yeah.
And here Hughes goes and he does it with Vacation. He does it with this.
Yep.
I miss that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, I said these wholesome movies about people just going, on vacation or just spend time with your family and just getting the moral aspect of the story is like, the love what you have, it's nowadays like they have the big blockbuster movies. A lot of them are crime thrillers, or I said you get the supernatural horror or superhero stuff. It's like I like when you actually get a movie and it's actually a good wholesome movie. Yeah, and so, but you know what really makes some of these movies better, especially a lot of the 80s movies, especially the comedy movies. John Candy, seeing him behind the scenes doing stuff, or Dan Aykroyd's, give me blooper reels, give me, like, just behind the scenes goofing off during production. I love seeing that as just as much as I love watching his movies, and sometimes it actually, I think, increases the watchability of the movie.
Right.
Because once you see how much fun they had doing this, like whenever I said Ghostbusters, there's so much stuff they were releasing off the first movie and they were doing the production before they even released it. Like, they had different names. I didn't know about this, and you just see Bill Murray on set and Dan Aykroyd, just those two just having fun, just goofing around. Like,
Well,
that
here's a little story that I'm gonna tie into this movie that sounds kind of strange, because it
when
kind of
Rob
went.
was a boy.
Well, no, it's
Oh, oh,
well, this is what's missing a lot of times in movies, or when they do them today, they feel forced, or when they
yeah.
gender swap roles, they feel forced. There's a couple people at my place of employment. Got a younger guy who he's straight. He's a dancer on the side, so he's been in some movies and videos and stuff and all that. And he's a hard worker, real humble and all that too, a real good guy, but he's, early 20s or whatever. And so, we talk about stuff. And then there's another guy who's really, really shy, but he's super smart and he's good looking and he's an engineer. He's getting ready to graduate. And he always wore a mask. He was the only one at work that did that. Nobody gave him any shit about it or whatever, because nobody else does. And so we were all talking about music and movies and stuff one day or whatever. And one of us said, man, imagine how easy it would be if, like, we just could do a band today with the internet and, Twitter and podcasts, and just how the accessible of everything is. I'm like, and then I had this flash of insight. I said, you know what? we should start our own boy band. And they're looking at me like, what? And I said, well, you've got the mask on. You're shy. You should be up there doing some beatbox. So it's going to be mumble rap. You're a dancer. You should just be breakdancing in the back. And I'll be like Jam Master Jay in the back, just kind of nodding my head to the beat. And I can get the 75-year-old who played in a band in Staten Island with the Mafia playing his little, Hammond B3 or something that everyone goes, what the fuck is going on? And they're all looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, come on, we'll be a mumble rap boy band. And they're all, you know what they all do? Both of them at the same time? They look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, dude, it's just whatever. They take out their cell phone and they both Google independently, mumble rap boy band. And they're like, and then one looks at the other one and goes, it's never been done. And I'm like, I'm fucking with them. But they took it seriously for a second. I said, you know what? Someone's going to do it, make a nasty ton of money. I'm just saying. So it's just variations on a thing. But here's the point. It was just a thing that happened organically. So now, like, people around work have heard about it and they're like, trying to come up with names for it and stuff. And it's one of those nice little things to come up as long as people don't get triggered or offended these days.
Yep.
You don't get that in movies anymore. You don't get where like John Candy's trying to do his thing, like teach his son how to water ski. And there's just a thing. What was the thing in this movie? It was the bear. And all the comments here in chat right now are about the bear and
Yes.
the story of the bear. And here's the thing. I said it before when he was telling the bear story. You know what's coming. But the execution is flawless. But then you don't realize that they're going to make the bear a big part of the end part of it.
Yes.
And so those things just don't exist. You know what? They're simple to do. You've seen them 50 million times, but now I think in modern movies you realize they're missing. And so you don't have to reinvent something new about it. You just have to come up with your own thing organically, state it at the beginning of the movie, and you can play off it a little bit. And you don't have to milk it for all it's worth. Just have it in there. John Candy did a great job with that, with average, everyday things. The father-son talk with Rusty on vacation. He's talking and he's getting all emotional, and Rusty just pounds the beer. Okay, the kid doesn't want to do anything. He goes and he meets the local girl up playing pool. And that was kind of, you could argue that was a bit of a vulgar scene, how he met her with the stick. But it was harmless, and those things happen, right? So that's the thing with John Hughes films. I mean, and it's, despite the ups and downs some people might have said about the film, they're still there.
The other thing about this is that this had the girl next door as the crush that Buck had a crush on, Cammy. So I'm looking back at there. I'm looking at a lot of these girls were normal looking. They're everyday, girls. They weren't the flashy, the Valley girls. I mean, if you're looking for that, those are usually in the slasher films. But like today, though, it's like you try to find like a next door girl. It's like they don't really exist in the movies. Everyone is just either they got they're really they find the most attractive people now for Hollywood now. I noticed that out of the girls, whether it's a TV show or a movie, there's never like I thought the only one I actually found that actually had a girl in there that wasn't like it was Stranger Things, and that was Beth, I think her name was. Or whatever her name was, she's the one that gets killed in the first season.
Justice for Barb.
Barb,
yeah.
Barb. Yeah. But I'm just saying, you don't find girls like that in movies and TV shows today, except for that one. I mean, everything has to be the Paris Hilton or the blonde, the hot blonde, or the hot brunette,
Oh my God, that's so hot right now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. I noticed that like is a Hollywood wants picture perfect people. Yeah. But I don't know. Like I said, this is a movie. It's a family movie. It's not vulgar. It's not obscene. This is a movie you can rewatch with your family, or you can even introduce new people to it. I said the 80s has so many good movies with bad stories.
That's true. It is.
But a lot of them either like if you're say like that's cool about it is like you can, if you want to watch a moral story, 80s and 70s had a lot of them. Yep. If you want to watch horror, they had that too. They also had, if you just want to watch somebody wasting 1,000 rounds on one single clip, that's 80s.
Yeah. It's amazing how you could have excess like that in a film, but then you go.
It was great. Commando, man. He just never reloaded.
All right. Final observations on this film. Why should people see it? What are some takeaways that people might enjoy?
Like I said, there's you're getting out. You're getting a. It's the fact that if you, I just mentioned to you is John Hughes, and if you have no idea who John Hughes is, this might be your gateway drug into the other John Hughes movies. You know, Pretty in Pink. You know, Breakfast Club. There's so many movies that he's done, and yeah, I mean, Dan Aykroyd, John Candy. I understand people are like, well, I'm not a fan of Dan Aykroyd. Well, dude, if you're not a fan of John Candy, you haven't watched a John Candy film. And I recommend you watch this, and then you go watch Uncle Buck, and then, or if you don't want to watch Uncle Buck, go watch Trains, Planes, and Automobiles.
That's one of the best comedies in a very, very, very long time. We've talked about that too here. One of the best Thanksgiving movies. Yep, it's awesome.
Yeah, I almost wish they would have done a sequel to that. You know,
I mean, I know it's tough because they struck gold with it, and sometimes you know it's tough. I mean, I think it's likable, and I think everything revolves around John Candy in this film. You're absolutely right. He's completely likable. He's, if nothing more, you see it because you go, I want to see more of this guy, John Candy. I mean, he really carries the film. That's not to say other people don't add to it, but he's the reason why you're in it, seeing this film.
John Candy is a wholesome, you know, big lovable guy in this. You know, pretty much every film, every movie he's in, he's pretty much like that. I don't think I've ever seen him being a jerk or a villain or that stuff. He's just a guy. He's a lovable guy. Sure, he's a little bit annoying, but he's got a big heart.
Yeah, yeah, and he's not afraid to not take himself too seriously too, in a different way than Clark Griswold would, right?
Which a lot of people need to learn how to do. Because a lot of people are afraid to be themselves.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great film too for those reasons you mentioned. I would say that out of the other John Hughes films or John Candy films, however you want to look at it, you can check some other ones out first. But this is a good movie to watch during the summer because it makes you feel like it's the summer, and it reminds you of what it was like if you were younger and you did family trips and you did getaways. Maybe you don't do that now these days, but still, it does kind of make you feel a little bit like the 80s, and you can't fake that. I think that's a pretty good thing. So regardless of some energy drop-offs that may exist in the film, depending on how you feel about it, it's still worthwhile, I think, to see. I'm just, again, like I say, it's like, oh my god, you got to go see this. I mean, between this and Planes, Trains, let's say, or Vacation, I'd say see those two first, but this one definitely would be on the list. There's other ones I would put below it on the John.
I think we'll stick with, maybe not John Candy, but I think we'll do some more summer movies.
Yeah, we've talked about a few, but this is one that we go, you know what? We like John Candy. We have fun talking about him. He's a nice guy, and it's a nice film. It's a nice movie. It's okay.
He's a nice man's.
Yeah.
And like I said, yeah, the raining, you're in a cabin like this, and there's a bear, and you hear stuff. Yeah, it's one of the reasons I don't really go up north by myself. And the fact that did they have a gun? I think they did have a gun.
They did. It was the lamp. And they shot his butt hair off, which sounds stupid, and that's what made him run away. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The Great Outdoors, John Candy, Dan Aykroyd, young Annette Bening. Not that that matters, but it's a decent John Hughes film. So check it out and all that. We'll see what comes up next week here on the Xtreme Movie Show. For RDV and everybody involved, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for getting word about us. Have a good night. And as always, stay extreme.
And Dan Aykroyd, don't make that sequel. I know we're talking about it. No
Kevin Hart sequel. That's bullshit. End that thought now. Good night now.
Bye-bye.